to their valuation. I think what investors have to look at is where is the runway really large for these companies to grow. And in case of Airbnb, online travel is almost 50% penetrated. 50% of people who book travel use online tools, apps. In case of food delivery, it's still early stage. In fact, I think the pandemic has really shifted the sentiment around online food and grocery delivery. So the runway there is large. But travel, I can't understand, alternative accommodations being a new $300-400 billion category overnight, and Airbnb growing 40-50% over the next 5 to 7 years.
Mandeep, let's quickly turn to the other big story of the day, and that is Facebook. Do you think investors should start pricing in the possibility that the company is broken up?
Well, so Facebook clearly has a lot of, clouds when it comes to advertising. And I think the key question over there is are the regulators going to look at Facebook as a monopoly in video advertising or social media advertising or online advertising as a whole? Because if they look at online advertising as a whole, then you've got Google, which is dominating the search ad market. So Facebook is really big in social media advertising. You've got Snap, Twitter, also that are big players in other forms of advertising. So I think it's hard to justify monopolistic behavior just based on the fact that Facebook did acquire companies Instagram and WhatsApp, and they have executed really well in terms of scaling these assets.
Guys, it was a really good conversation. Looking forward to when it finally opens here. Mandeep Singh of Bloomberg Intelligence, thank you very much, and Bloomberg Sonali Basak joining us as well. Coming up, utilities going green. We're going to talk about how this affects the cost of power in today's Future in Focus. It does affect your utility bill. This is Bloomberg.
Those 6 scenarios, Alice, will go through a process in front of both regulatory commissions in 2021, and they will give us feedback. We will also continue to be engaged with stakeholders in both states, looking for how quickly should we be adding renewables, what are the renewables we should add, how do we add battery storage. So I think there will be a number of initiatives moving along at the same pace.
That was Lynn Good, Duke Energy Chair, President, and CEO. I spoke to her about the transition to low-carbon technologies, and that's part of today's Futures in Focus. She basically wound up doing a survey that said, look, if we add things like wind, it's going to cost you this much more. If we go full nuclear, it goes this much. If we don't do anything, this is how much your power bill increases, kind of a real-time, tangible feel. In the meantime, though, Guy, you have power prices rolling over. Natural gas prices rolling over. The demand is just not there right now, which is creating even a shorter-term headwind for these guys.
Yeah, you've got to manage. So there's a whole different range of issues here, and the sustainability story is fascinating because you've basically got to manage peak loads and base loads, and that's something that there's going to be a huge challenge for these utilities. Look, here in the UK, you've already got a deregulated market. If I want to switch my energy provider, I can do so. I'm looking at a site now. There's 10 different options for me to choose, and I can choose one that has a higher mix of sustainability in it or a cheaper price. The consumer has the choice over here which way it wants to go.
That's what she's trying to provide as well for her customers. So tune in today for Commodities Edge at 1 p.m. I'll bring you that full conversation with Lynn Good. This is Bloomberg.
Live from London, I'm Guy Johnson. Alex Steele is over in New York. We're now counting you down to the European close on Bloomberg Markets this Thursday. So what do you need to know from Europe this hour? Well, the ECB is buying more time for Eurozone governments by raising its pandemic bond buying program by 500 billion euros. And crucially, extending it to at least March 2022. The European Commission laying out its hard Brexit plans to avoid chaos if there is no deal. Large gaps are said to remain between the two sides. The latest deadline is Sunday. The talks have restarted this afternoon, and EU leaders poised to unlock their $2.2 trillion budget and rescue fund with a deal to delay the region's new rule of law mechanism. The compromise allowing Poland and Hungary potentially to withdraw their vetoes. Let's talk about the markets. In some ways, not a massive reaction to the ECB today, and in many ways that would have been what Christine Lagarde would have wanted. Stocks actually hitting session lows during the early part of the press conference. Stock 600 down by 0.3%. Euro dollar, now it did pick up a little bit during the press conference, and this is going to be a source of concern. Lagarde mentioned